Welcome to Practically Christian. I'm Jake, and I'm here with Janelle.
Hi, guys.
And Luke. We share conversations that help you know Jesus more deeply and follow him more faithfully. The truth is, no one has arrived at Christ-likeness. To grow in that direction, we believe you need authentic relationships and biblical theology applied to your everyday life. We hope that you are encouraged to grow and to live out the biblical truths that we discuss on this episode. So let's get practical and dive into a conversation about Advent and what that word means.
So this episode is airing slightly before Christmas, so that we're still in the Advent season. Is that right? Is that what it's airing?
We can make it do that if you want.
Okay, well.
Or right after Christmas is when it would air.
No, we should have it come out right before Christmas. We should also leave this part in.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
This is a special episode that will air right before Christmas.
Now. Here we go.
So many of you in the audience have been celebrating Advent, and different church traditions do this in different ways. But Advent just means arrival. It's kind of the anticipation of the arrival of Jesus as the incarnate one. So I just wanted to chat about Advent and ask you guys this general question. Did you celebrate Advent, or was it only Christmas? And what were your traditions growing up around Advent?
Yeah, my church was like a non-denominational church growing up, so I don't remember really doing Advent candles or special readings. I don't really remember that. I remember there being sometimes like special music in the Christmas season and singing more carols and like the worship time. But that's it. Like that's what I don't think I heard the word Advent even until college.
Yeah, it's more of like a liturgical church tradition. How about you, Jake?
I think we had an Advent calendar once or twice.
That's true. We did have those. Yeah, we did have Advent.
And what did that mean to you? What is an Advent calendar for you?
I guess. No. I mean, it was like, it's like, I don't know. It's like a countdown. That's about it. Like,
yeah, ours was a countdown till Christmas.
Yeah,
and it had like a really cheap made in China toy every day.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I can beat you on that because we didn't get toys in ours. They were just little cardboard things, and you got to see the picture behind the little cardboard door that you'd open. So, yeah, Advent is. I think it is definitely more pronounced in churches that follow the liturgical Christian calendar.
Yeah, the church calendar.
But I think it is significant because if you look at the account in Luke of the coming of Jesus, it doesn't just jump into his ministry, for instance. Like it starts even before Jesus was born, before Mary even got the announcement. It actually starts with Zechariah and all of the things that happened with him. Sorry, my computer just went to sleep mode. All right. I know. But I think there is, I think Christmas is played up in our culture in general, right? There's like tons and tons of Christmas advertisements everywhere, but it's not necessarily the meaningful traditions. So I'd like to discuss the Magnificat, which is a fancy name for Mary's essentially a poem that she said.
Yeah.
So the context for this poem, which Jake's going to read for us in a moment, is the angel Gabriel shows up to first Zechariah, who's the father of John the Baptist, and tells them that even in their old age, they're going to have a son. And then Gabriel is sent to Mary, who is a young engaged woman, and he tells her that she's going to bear the Savior of the world. She's a little confused, and she's like, how is that going to happen? How is that going to be? Because I'm a virgin and I've never had sex with anyone. And he's like, well, the Holy Spirit's going to conceive the child by his power in you. So Mary also learns about Elizabeth's pregnancy from the angel, and she goes on a visit, an extended visit with her relative, Elizabeth. So she gets there, and Elizabeth's baby, who is at this point about 6 months along, leaps in her womb from excitement for greeting the mother of the Lord. And then Elizabeth tells her about that, and then Mary responds with this poem. Go for it.
This is Luke 1:46 through 55. My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. For he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the mighty one has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and to his descendants forever, just as he promised our ancestors.
Thank you. What stands out to you guys from that poem that she?
I think like it has a very strong, I don't know if there's a label for this, but like reversal, right? Like the rich are going to be thrown down and the poor elevated. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
that's
he
it.
scatters the proud and haughty ones. He brings down the princes. He
Yeah.
exalts the humble.
Yeah,
It feels very psalm-like
it does.
in that. These are what stands out. Is that yeah? I don't know. There's lots of little things that stand out. I think we see this this idea. I think it's very interesting where it's like generation to generation, but in a lot of ways that's I think a reminder maybe even for herself that it's like you've treated these people well, you will treat me well. Like I in some sense it's like I trust you because you're fulfilling the promises and you're continuing to fulfill the promise. And so there's a lot of like that kind of like the fact that God is caring for the generations.
Yeah, and it's kind of recognizing God's hand through the history of the people. Yeah, really. Anything else?
I mean, that's like my sort of snarky side, but like I kind of joke when people are like, like I'm so humble. It's like, well, then you're not. But actually, she does that. It's like God has been mindful of the humble state of his servant, and she's talking about herself as
Yeah.
the Lord's servant.
Yeah.
But so apparently, you can be humble.
Do you think that that's
say that you're humble?
Do you think that that's humility in like emotional humility, or is that humble like she's poor?
I think she is poor.
Yeah, in the translation that I looked up, I think it's the New Living Translation. It says he took notice of his lowly servant girl.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
I think it's probably maybe both of those things going on.
But I mean, she's identifying herself with this reversal, right?
Yeah.
She's saying like, I'm humble and lowly,
Yeah.
and God is lifting me up to be someone who's going to be famous through all time, through all generations going forward. I'm going to be called blessed.
Yeah. Well, that was the final thing that stood out is like, well, that came true. It's like not everyone in the world, but most people know.
Well, every generation since hers
Yeah.
has had people who recognize her as blessed, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing that stands out to me is how she basically remarks that Israel needs mercy. Right at the end it says like he has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever. Whereas like if we think about mercy is like not giving people what they deserve. It's not punishing people when they deserve to be punished. And so I think we see throughout the Gospels the Pharisees and the Sadducees thinking that they don't need mercy. And so Mary's song is kind of setting up that idea of like, no, actually, Israel does need mercy. We're not special and better in holiness in some sense or in like righteousness.
Yeah, I mean, that connects to the political situation of the time. So if you notice in the Bible, there are a lot of women named Mary. And part of that is because Mary means bitterness. And they were in a bitter time of oppression by the Roman Empire. So it was like almost even her name is almost a cry for God to do something for the bitterness of their state in Israel. So
there was actually there was like a textual critic that I was like looking at one point, and he was like, yeah, actually the fact that there's so many people named Mary in the Gospels shows historical certainty that it's from that time. Because like 16% of all women at that time were named Mary. That's like a level of how frequent of a name it was. And so he was like, it would actually be weird if there weren't multiple people named Mary in the Bible.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard even like some people would name their kids, you'd be like, Mary something.
Mhm.
And like your next daughter would be Mary something else.
Mhm.
And the next daughter would be Mary something else. Because it was like the bitterness was the.
So sometimes
it's
people in Jewish culture back in the day had a little bit of focus on their country's situation.
Well, one thing that I didn't necessarily like spontaneously come up with when I read this, but as I did some research, there are a lot of similarities between Mary's poem here and the words of Hannah that she prays when she gives her son Samuel to the church. So,
Mhm.
well, I guess to the temple. But the way that that worked was it was. So can you summarize Hannah's story really quick?
Sure. I mean, so
It's the part where they think
Okay.
that she's drunk.
Okay,
Just
yeah.
like
I mean, basically, she's barren. She really wants a child. She prays. Eli, the priest, prays for her, and in fulfillment of that, God gives her a son. And she's like, "Because you did this, Lord, I'm going to give him back to you and set him apart for you and to serve you with his life." And that's Samuel, who is kind of, um, in some ways, like the first of the prophets, or well, yeah, he's a lot of things, but he's like the last judge before the kings of Israel. He's the one who anoints Saul and later David.
And he kind of like acts like as a judge and as a prophet
Yeah.
at different points.
Exactly.
yeah. So if you want to read Hannah's prayer, that has a lot of similarities. It actually has the same theme of reversal
Mhm.
quite a few times in it. That's in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. But I think one thing that just really stood out to me about that connection is that Hannah has a son that is given to God.
Mhm.
Like it's a son for her, but not really for her. And I feel like that's the same with Mary. She's given a son in Jesus, and it's not for her. It's like for some greater purpose. And God's blessing isn't just about her, even though she gets the benefit of that blessing, which is just beautiful to see the connections across great swaths of time. Um, so one of the things I wanted to point out, this is right before Mary gives this Magnificat. Elizabeth actually says to Mary, "You are blessed because you believed that the Lord would do what he said." And I know probably a lot of you at your churches have heard this theme pointed out, but the people waited for so long for Jesus. And we have the benefit on being the other side of that, but we also are in a time of waiting because Jesus's work is not complete in the world. Like the time of fulfillment of everything hasn't come, even though Jesus came. So we're still in a version of Advent where we're waiting for the arrival of Jesus. So I'm going to actually have Luke read this. Revelation 21. Right, you can just read it on here.
Oh, sure.
It's up to you.
Stealing my Bible. I was looking for where's the place where the guy you keep looking where's the place where the guy is like celebrating Jesus as an infant.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
You know,
when they go to the temple after
Yeah.
his.
I was trying to it's somewhere in
That's where
here.
it is. Simeon.
Yeah, Simeon, where he's like literally like, now I can die because I've seen the Lord come.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's yeah. Anyways, it's just like a very interesting thing.
that's great.
It's sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you may now dismiss your servant in peace. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all nations, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel. It's like that's like crazy that like someone is like so waiting for the Messiah, and in some sense God like gives him this gift in his old age before he dies. It's like kind of
Yeah. My impression was that Simeon was told by God that he would see it
Yeah.
before he
That's-
died.
that's
And then he's
Yeah.
like, all right, here we go.
there's the team.
All right, so this is Revelation 21, verses 1 through 8.
It says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, and the sea was also gone. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, like a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, 'Look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain,
All these things are gone forever. And the one sitting on the throne said, Look, I am making everything new. And then he said to me, Write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true. And he also said, It is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the springs of the water of life. All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But cowards, unbelievers, the corrupt, murderers, the immoral, those who practice witchcraft, idol worshippers, and all liars, their fate is in the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death.
Thanks for reading that. So this is a picture, I mean, it's both the positive and the negative, right? It's like the coming of this time. I just love the line where it says, there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. And we have not gotten there yet, right? There's plenty of death and sorrow and crying and pain in this world that we live in right now. But I feel like we have a tendency, maybe it's our cultural position, we want to be comfortable and happy. Like happiness is a goal for people. But I would say biblically, there's a place for feeling unsettled, feeling a sense of longing that has not yet been fulfilled. And just like we saw with Simeon, he's like waiting, right? He's waiting for this child to be born and that he could see him. We are also waiting. Do you guys feel like you personally are in touch with a sense of longing for the second coming of Jesus, for the New Jerusalem? To be realized, or do you feel like it's pretty distant and kind of irrelevant in general? Or how do you swing back and forth between those two?
Yeah, I think it's like a weird balance where it's like at the same time that we're supposed to long for when everything is right, there's also like a sense where there are blessings in this world, and God is not only working for the future to be good, but he's working for now to be good. And so, in some sense, I feel like I long more for now to be good because the future will be good.
Mm.
Is that we're like, in some sense, like the future is the picture that I want right now. And when I imagine it right now.
Mm. Like being realized.
I want the realization now, but I don't necessarily long for the full realization to that same extent. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think in some ways we have a different Advent season than they did before Jesus came.
Yeah.
Like we don't have silence. We don't have God waiting to send the Son. Like we have the Holy Spirit. We have purpose in our days. We have, we're not just waiting on the future. Like we really are supposed to have that sense of like, how can things be made more right now?
Yeah, I think it's more like the swing, like you said, Janelle. For me, I think I can, as I get caught up in the present or the immediate future, without reference to God's ultimate future, pretty easily, and just focused on like enjoyment of the gifts God has for me now. And but then, I think especially with big life events, it's easier to focus forward for me. I mean, of course, like a funeral when someone dies or planning a funeral. But even more than that, even like the big happy things, there's been several times where I'm like, I think I am able to have like that, this is so great and it'll be so much greater or something.
Like enjoy it with a perspective of.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, this is so great and I'm loving it so much and I can't wait for when this will be more normal and it'll even be better than this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember someone was talking to me the other day and they were like, and to let you know, if I say the other day, it could be any time in the last 2 years because I'm really bad at keeping track of when. They were talking about like, well, I feel like the new creation will be like boring because like, what are you going to do for eternity? And I'm like, it'll be not boring just for the fact that there won't be sin.
Yeah.
Like, it's, like the idea of like there not being sin and not having to worry about double motives and not having to worry about like, different problems and stuff. It's like, gosh, just the amount of like, imagine doing a building project and nothing goes wrong. It's like, wow, that is such an awesome idea. Like, imagine doing an art project and you're able to actually, as someone who's terrible at art, I can actually put the thing that I want down instead of just like be disappointed.
Although I still think there's gonna be like learning curves.
Yeah, there'll be a learning curve, and after 1 billion years, I'll be really good.
True. Yeah. What about you, Janelle?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tend to want internal peace. So I don't like focusing on longing. Like I want to just be satisfied with now. And I do think part of that is only possible because life is comfortable to a certain extent, or like it's almost like if you are in a time of grief, like how much more is it automatic for you to long for a resolution, you know, or if you're in a war-torn country, like how much more are you longing for that peace to come? And I think in some ways, in the Magnificat, we saw a lot of reversals, but it's like the hungry will be filled and the rich will go away empty. Like it's almost like we should be the hungry because then we'll be filled by God. And if so I think it's convicting to me, I guess, and it draws those things together. We went to a Christmas concert this weekend, and one of the songs is based off of a poem written by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, but he wrote at that kind of the Civil War time. And he had a lot of personal loss too. He lost his first wife to a miscarriage. He lost his second wife just a few years before he wrote this to burning to death, because that would happen a lot back then where you were like doing something and your dress would catch on fire and he'd burn to death. So like his wife died like a horrible death.
Burning to dress in a dress?
Yeah, that was a very common death for women, because like either with open kitchen fires or with candles when they're doing wax stuff with the but anyway, so he had like he had experienced extreme loss.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a song that talks about like the bells on Christmas, and then he's like feeling like, wait, there is no peace on earth. Like war is currently happening to the South, basically, and he talks about that. But just that unsettled nature
Do you
of.
want to read part of it?
Or sing it?
I am not.
I'm rooting for the singing.
You want me to sing it?
Yeah, I think it'll be more fun.
Well, it's a really long song. I'm not going to sing the whole
Just sing a
thing.
couple of bits. You're not going to read the whole thing either.
Well, he didn't write it as a song. It was a poem.
Oh, never mind.
Casting
And then it
Crowns turned it.
Became they
Or-
adapted it, but it had been a song since like the 1800s. So this is like the dark part of the song. He says, "Then from each black accursed mouth the cannon thundered in the south, and with the sound the carols drowned of peace on earth, goodwill to men." So he's talking about cannon firing,
Like drowning out
the sound of bells that are like, Merry Christmas, everybody. And then later he says, "In despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men." And then the final stanza is like a little hopeful. It says, "Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men." But yeah, I think for us, it's like there is going to be the right prevailing eventually, even if the wrong seems like it's prevailing now. So just a reflection on that for the holidays. We hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and enjoy all of the festivities and relationships and fun. But keep that longing in your heart too. We are going to conclude with the blessing that Elizabeth said to Mary, because we are waiting and believing that the Lord will do what he says. So you are blessed because you believed that the Lord would do what he said. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.